So, Alex, I want to play you a clip. This is from a podcast called The Last Invention, which just dropped a new episode featuring 3 different AI skeptics. And one of them, well, just listen. Clip. The main thing holding back AI is that it doesn't think work.
Okay, so who is this guy?
That's Ed Zitron. He runs a PR firm, writes a tech newsletter with about 85,000 subscribers, and hosts a podcast called Better Offline. He's been described as one of the most pugnacious critics of big tech, and he just spent about 25 minutes on The Last Invention telling the host that AI is a complete grift, that none of the people building it are sincere, and that we are, quote, at the limits of what these things can do.
And I want to be clear about what we're doing today. We are not anti-skeptic. Skepticism is essential. In fact, 2 other guests on this same episode, Gary Marcus and Arvind Narayanan, made genuinely thoughtful critiques that deserve real engagement. But Zitron's segment is something different. It's a masterclass in bad argumentation, dressed up as contrarianism. And I think it's worth picking apart because a lot of people hear confident, loud skepticism and assume it must be well-reasoned.
So let's go through his biggest claims one by one. At about 8 minutes in, Zitron says this: AI is a marketing term and it doesn't mean anything. It just means something related to whatever we can raise investment dollars for.
So this is a classic move where you take a grain of truth and stretch it until it snaps. Yes, AI gets slapped onto products that barely qualify. Your toaster doesn't need a neural network, but the field of artificial intelligence has had a formal definition since 1956. It encompasses machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, robotics, and more. Dismissing all of that as just marketing is like saying medicine is just a marketing term because supplement companies make bogus health claims.
And he never once engages with what the technology actually does, not once in the entire segment.
That's the pattern we'll keep seeing. He talks around the technology without ever talking about it. Argument 2, dismissing Geoffrey Hinton.
This one really got me. Around 10 minutes in, the host brings up Geoffrey Hinton, and Zitron's response is, "Oh, Jeff Hinton, who? Sorry, I shouldn't mock him," and then he proceeds to mock him for the next several minutes.
Right? He questions what Hinton has been up to other than occasionally speaking to somebody and going, "I'm scared of a computer." This is a Nobel Prize winner in physics, a man who spent 40 years developing the foundational techniques behind modern neural networks, and Zitron's rebuttal is essentially he's old and gives speeches.
And then at around 13 minutes, he says, "For all his bloviating, Jeff seems to provide very little actual commentary." And then the wild part, he claims Hinton's safety warnings are actually marketing for AI companies. The logic being that if someone says your product is scary, that makes it seem powerful, which raises its valuation.
Which is a conspiracy theory. You're taking a 76-year-old academic who left Google specifically so he could speak freely about AI risks and claiming he's secretly doing PR for the companies he's criticizing. That's not analysis, that's a plot from a bad thriller.
The host actually pushes back on this, and Zitron just doubles down. Argument 3, the whataboutism pivot. This is where things get really bizarre. Around 16 minutes in, Zitron pivots to: why doesn't Jeff Hinton seem to care about Black people in disadvantaged neighborhoods who are contracting horrible diseases from these horrible data centers?
So just to be clear about what happened here, the host asked Zitron to engage with Hinton's technical arguments about AI risk. Zitron's response was to accuse Hinton of not caring about environmental racism. That's textbook whataboutism. It doesn't address the argument. It changes the subject entirely and puts the other person on moral defense.
And Hinton does actually speak about near-term harms like job displacement and bias. The host points this out. Zitron just barrels through it. Argument 4, these are liars. At around 20 minutes, the host brings up internal OpenAI emails from 2017 where Altman, Musk, and Sutskever discuss their genuine fears about AGI. These are private emails, not public statements, and Zitron's response is, these are bloviating rich guys sitting around huffing their own farts.
The host is presenting evidence of sincere belief, private communications where these people expressed concern about the power of what they were building. And Zitron's entire counterargument is, they're liars. That's it. No engagement with the content of the emails. No alternative explanation for why they'd express these concerns privately. Just, they're bad people, therefore nothing they say counts.
Which brings us to the big one. Argument At 26 minutes, the host asks Zitron point blank whether all this investment and talent could produce something truly transformational. And Zitron says, no, we are at the limits of what these things can do. We are absolutely not at some early stage.
This is the most falsifiable claim he makes, and it's stated with absolute certainty. Zero hedging. No, probably, or I think, just no. This is the ceiling. Now, we've heard this kind of prediction before. In 2016, people said neural networks had peaked. In 2022, people said GPT-3 was the ceiling. Each time, the next generation blew past those predictions.
And his evidence for this ceiling claim.
He doesn't offer no technical argument about why scaling would stop working, no discussion of architectural limitations, no engagement with recent breakthroughs in reasoning, coding, or multimodal capability. His evidence is he's confident about it.
Which connects to something from his other media appearances. When a Guardian reporter asked how he could be so certain AI would collapse, his answer was, "I feel it in my soul."
I feel it in my soul.
A tech critic whose entire brand is demanding evidence from everyone else arrives at his most important conclusion through soul-based reasoning.
Look, I don't want to be too mean about it. Everyone has intuitions, but if your job is to be the evidence guy, the just look at the data guy, you cannot then pivot to I feel it in my soul when asked for your evidence. That's not skepticism, that's faith.
So stepping back, what's the playbook here?
It's remarkably consistent. First, never engage with the technology itself. Don't talk about benchmarks, architectures, or capabilities. Second, attack the people instead of the arguments. Hinton is old, Altman is a liar, Musk is a narcissist. Third, frame everything as a conspiracy motivated by money. Fourth, when cornered, pivot to an unrelated social issue. And fifth, make your position unfalsifiable. If AI works, it's marketing. If AI fails, you told us so.
It's the rhetorical equivalent of flipping the chessboard and claiming you won.
And here's the part that makes the whole thing kind of poetic. In October 2025, Wired published a profile of Zitron with the headline, Ed Zitron gets paid to love AI. He also gets paid to hate AI.
Wait, what?
Zitron runs EasyPR, a PR firm, and among his clients are AI companies, so he's publicly saying AI is not a real industry, while his firm is literally taking money from that industry to do their public relations.
So the guy accusing everyone else of being motivated by money?
Is himself profiting from both sides of the debate. I'm not saying that automatically invalidates everything he says. Plenty of critics work in the industries they critique, but when your core argument is everyone else is just doing this for money, you should probably disclose that you're doing it for money too.
Okay, so we've been pretty hard on Zitron, but I want to make something really clear. We are not saying AI skepticism is bad.
Not even close. In fact, the other two guests on this same episode demonstrate what productive skepticism looks like. Gary Marcus is a cognitive scientist at NYU who has been studying AI for over 30 years. His argument is specific and technical. Current large language models have fundamental architectural limitations. They hallucinate, they struggle with reasoning, and scaling alone won't fix those problems. He correctly predicted that GPT-5 wouldn't be the massive leap forward that was hyped.
And he's not anti-AI, he wants better AI. He thinks we need hybrid architectures that combine neural networks with symbolic reasoning.
Then you have Arvind Narayanan from Princeton, whose argument is even more nuanced. He's not skeptical of the technology at all. He's skeptical of the speed of societal adoption. His point is that even transformative technologies like electricity took 50 to 60 years to fully integrate. Human institutions, regulations, and preferences create natural bottlenecks. He compares it to Amtrak buying faster trains, but still being limited by curved tracks.
Those are arguments you can actually engage with. They're specific, they're evidence-based, they acknowledge complexity.
And that's the difference. Marcus and Narayanan make you think harder. Zitron makes you think less. One is skepticism, the other is performance art.
So what does productive AI skepticism actually look like?
It looks like asking hard questions about hallucination rates and what causes them. It looks like demanding transparency about training data. It looks like studying real-world deployment failures, not just tweeting about them. It looks like what Narayanan does with AI chatbots and mental health, tracking actual data on people having suicidal ideation in conversations with ChatGPT.
Real harms, real evidence.
The AI industry absolutely needs critics. It needs people asking uncomfortable questions about bias, about labor displacement, about environmental costs, about the gap between marketing claims and actual capabilities. But those critics need to actually engage with the technology. You can't just wave your hand and say it doesn't work when hundreds of millions of people are using it productively every day.
And you definitely can't say, "I feel it in my soul," and expect to be taken seriously as an evidence-based critic.
The tragedy is that Zitron has a real platform, 85,000 newsletter subscribers, a popular podcast. He's reaching people who deserve better arguments than what he's giving them. There are real concerns about AI, real problems worth discussing. And when the loudest voice in the room is making the worst arguments, it makes it easier for the AI companies to dismiss all criticism as unserious.
Bad skepticism isn't just wrong. It's actively harmful to the good skeptics doing real work.
So, if you want to be a smart AI skeptic, and you should be at least a little skeptical, read Gary Marcus, read Arvind Narayanan, read Emily Bender, read Timnit Gebru. These are people who engage with the technology on its own terms and hold it accountable with evidence. That's what skepticism looks like. Everything else is just content.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Links to everything we referenced are in the description. And if you feel this one in your soul, hit subscribe.
That's what's terrible.
I know, I feel it in my soul.